in the webinar, and some we may kind of wait to the end of the webinar to get some of those questions answered, but feel free to ask as many questions as you would like. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We're at 12:30 here. I want to welcome everyone to our 2023 Farm Bill Decision Making webinar. I am Nathan Holinsky. I'm with the University of Minnesota Extension. I'm on our agricultural business management team. And with that, we will be going over again this ARC versus PLC decision making that we have here for 2023. And with that, what are our options and what's our agenda here today? So we'll be going over what is the agricultural risk coverage in comparison to the price loss coverage. We're going to peek at what happened in 2022, also what happened with 2021 payments, and then also we'll wrap up here with our decision making for 2023. Farmers have up until March 15th of this year to make their decision on which program to enroll in for their base acres on their farm for 2023. So March 15th is the deadline. So we'll start off here with a bunch of statistics that we have for what happened with the previous enrollment of Farm Bill plans. So in Minnesota, we had 105,174 farms enrolled in ARC or PLC. So those numbers are up from both the 2014 initial sign up, and also it's an increase from our 2019-2020 sign up. So sign up is up. And I do want to highlight that these programs are based on base acres that farmers have. And we can see this is state as a whole. We have about 8.5 million base acres of corn, about 5.5 million base acres of soybeans, just under 2 million base acres of wheat, and then we have about 250,000 acres of barley, 165,000 base acres of oats. We can see sunflower seed, about 50,000 base acres, flaxseed, only about 1,400, dry peas and grain sorghum, under 1,000 acres statewide in those crops. So I just want to highlight corn, soybeans, wheat are the three biggest crops in Minnesota in comparison of these. And we'll highlight most of our discussion on those big three, not talk as much about barley, oats, sunflower, and flaxseed. But what happened in 2021? So again, in 2021, farmers had an annual decision to make on which programs to enroll in. We had PLC, the price loss coverage, ARC, which is the agricultural risk coverage, both county and ARC individual. And we can see in 2021, Minnesota specifically, on corn acres, we had about 39% of corn base acres in PLC. The majority, 60%, were in ARC county, and just a few, about 1%, were in ARC individual. Differently on soybeans, where we had 94% of our base acres on soybeans enrolled in ARC county. We can see on PLC it was only about 5% on PLC in 2021 in Minnesota, and again, a few acres there in ARC individual. Wheat was the opposite. We had 81% of our base acres in wheat on price loss coverage, and only about 18% ARC county, with a few farms, again, about 1% in ARC individual. So again, the different crops, again, had different tendencies to be in different programs. And that was 2021. This is nationwide. The previous 21 numbers were Minnesota specific. This is for nationwide. And we can see fairly similar to what we witnessed in 2021 in Minnesota. We had ARC County 60% of our national base acres in corn were ARC County, about 39% in PLC, and then again about 1% in ARC individual on corn. On soybeans, we had 84% of our soybean base acres enrolled in ARC County, about 15% of those base acres in PLC, and about 1% in ARC individual. On wheat, we still had a majority of our base acres in price loss coverage. We had about 52% nationwide enrolled in PLC on wheat, about 1% ARC individual, and then again about 47% ARC County on our wheat acres. And again, all this information is from the USDA FSA office, so that is where all the data is coming from. So again, that is what programs farmers have enrolled into the past couple years. So what happened in 2021? So there were some payments in 2021 in Minnesota. And we'll break down what these payments are and what counties received them. So in total, for 2021, the 2021 growing season payments were issued in October of 2022. So just a couple months ago, farmers received these payments that were for the 2021 growing season. And we can see there's about $8.1 million in payments paid out in the state of Minnesota on these crop farm bill payments. $0 were issued in PLC. There weren't any PLC payments for the 2021 growing year. ARC County, though, there were some substantial payments, and we'll break down what counties got payments, but ARC County, it was just under $8 million in payments in the state of Minnesota. We had a few farms, just over $200,000 worth of ARC individual payments were issued. But again, I want to highlight that there were some ARC payments in 21. Again, PLC breakdown here, we can see we have our reference price there of $3.70 on corn. The final marketing year average price was $6 on corn. So when that marketing year average price is above that reference price, there is 0 PLC payments. On wheat, again, that reference price at $5.50, our final marketing year average price was $7.63. So there was 0 payment in 2021 on wheat because our marketing year average price was above the reference price. Same story on soybeans. The reference price at $8.40. Our marketing year average price, which is finalized last fall, was over $13. So again, when the marketing year average price is above the reference price, 0 PLC payments. And that's what happened in 2021. So what payments were issued? So these are Minnesota payments, and we can see this is just a summation of total crop with that program. So ARC County paid out over $4 million in corn across the state. We can see there's 1,640 approved contracts, which is the farms that are enrolled in those programs. So again, $4 million on corn, almost $2.5 million on soybeans. You can see there's over 1,000 contracts that were approved to get those payments. Barley, $500,000, wheat, around $500,000 in statewide payments. Oats, just under $200,000. We can see there's a few dry peas, sunflower seed, and canola payments as well. Fairly small. We looked at our earlier graph, and there were not a lot of base acres in dry peas, sunflower seed, and canola. We can see on the bottom of the list, we have our ARC individual. So again, we had 38 farms, 38 contracts here that had ARC individual corn in their base acres, and they got around $100,000 in payments. Again, this is statewide data. Soybeans, about $90,000 worth of payments in ARC individual. a few payments there on both wheat, canola, and oats there for some smaller total payments there in these different programs. Going a little bit deeper in 2021, we can see that our corn payments, again, no PLC payments were issued on corn for 2021. These are the few counties that received a payment in Minnesota. We have a few central Minnesota counties of Benton and Morrison, Sherburne, Wadena County. Payments ranging, again, Benton County had about $16 per acre payment. And then we can see that Red Lake County in the northwest part of the state had about a $63 per acre payment. Morrison County in central Minnesota, again, $63 per acre payment. And you can see again some of the surrounding counties that did receive a payment. These payments were issued because of lower than average yield. Maybe they had some drought concerns or some other reduction in their yield in these counties that calculated or then issued a payment due to the lower yields. So again, a handful of counties had a corn ARC county payment. Soybeans, again, no price loss coverage payment were made in soybeans because of the reference price lower than the average marketing year average price. Again, we had a handful of counties that received a payment. Clearwater County in the northwest part of the state, a very small payment. Again, we have Morrison, Sherburne, Wadena, $25 to $40 payment in the central part of the state. Pennington, Red Lake, again, are northwest Minnesota, and they got, $20 and $35 payments approximately. So a handful of counties received ARC county payments in these counties for soybeans. On wheat, again, the price loss coverage, there were no payments on wheat because the marketing year average price of wheat was high. It was higher than our reference prices. And we can see again, a handful of counties got wheat payments. And we can see most of them are in northwest Minnesota. And then we had a few in central Minnesota with Todd and Wadena County and Morrison County around a $10 or $20 payment per acre. Pennington, Red Lake, $20 to $30 per acre payment on wheat. And then we'll go in a little more detail here. This is highlighting other ARC county payments. And again, these programs are based on base acres that a farmer has. They're not based on what the farmer plants in a given year. They're based on base acres. And we still have some base acres of oats. We can see again, some central Minnesota, a couple southern Minnesota counties, and northwest Minnesota, again, got a handful of payments on oats. You can see, $5 to $25 per acre. Same thing with barley. Northwest Minnesota, we have both East and West Polk County, Red Lake County, Roseau County, Traverse, Wilkin are all western Minnesota. Pennington, Clearwater, Clay, all of western northwest Minnesota on barley. Some had a pretty decent payment. You can see Polk County had about a $42 per acre payment on their barley base acres. Wrapping up payments here in 2021, we can see, again, some of these other not as commonly grown crops, dry peas. There's not a lot of dry pea base acres in Minnesota, but we can see again, mostly in our western Minnesota and northwestern Minnesota region had some dry pea base acres that resulted in a payment with a reduction of yield. And we can see again, around $20 per acre are the payments for these various counties. And again, these other three crops of sunflower seed, canola, and rapeseed, we only had one county that got a payment, and we can see Pennington County with canola, very small payment. Carlton County had a rapeseed payment there. under $5 per acre. Wadena also had a sunflower seed payment of about $27 per acre. So these payments are from 2021 growing season that were issued in October of 2022. And these are all finalized, and all the farmers should have received these payments already. Moving on into 2022, I highlighted what crops are elected into the different program options, but we won't know the final payments, if there was a payment for these different crops, until the end of the marketing year. PLC payments are looking unlikely due to the current crop prices, right? We have a reference prices, on corn, 370, 550 on wheat, soybeans is 840. Our current prices are significantly higher than that. And the marketing year average prices are not finalized, but in order to issue a PLC payment, we would need significant drops in our current prices to issue a PLC payment. Some counties had some yield concerns in growing year 2022. We had drought in certain pockets in Minnesota, which may issue an ARC County payment, similar to what we just showed for 2021. We always have a year lag from harvest before the payments are issued. And this is based on the 2022 marketing year. And we can see these are the marketing year windows, right? The corn marketing year is September 1 through August 31st. Soybeans, September 1, October 31st. Wheat, barley, oats, that's a June 1 through May 31st. Sunflower seed, again, September 1 to August 31st. We have flaxseed, canola, dry peas. That's a July 1 through a June 30th marketing year average to calculate the price. So the different crops have a different marketing year that is used to finalize the prices here and calculation of our PLC and our ARC payments. But again, we want to point out, again, we are in program year 2022. That payment will be issued around October 1st of 2023. So these numbers won't be finalized for another 7 or 8 months. And again, this is our educational webinar highlighting what is our options for 2023. The payments that may or may not be issued for growing year 2023, they won't be issued until October 1st of 2024. So we do have a lag in those payments versus our growing year. So I just want to highlight that. So moving forward, what is our best decision strategies here for 2023, right? We have county by county what if graphs. We have some payment maximums, types of coverage. We'll talk about some crop insurance additional options, and then we'll highlight some educational tools, resources that everyone on this call can use to help finalize their decision. So with that, we have an annual decision, right? In 2021, that started our annual decision. Our previous Farm Bill of 2014, you chose one election and that was good for the 5-year window. Or the 2018 Farm Bill that we're currently in, the 19 and 20 growing season were decided, there was a 2-year commitment, but starting in 2021, it was an annual decision. 2023 here is another annual decision that we have. March 15th, so about 5-6 weeks from now, these decisions need to be finalized. So again, for 2023, we have forward looking here. We have some minimal stats that are available today to help us decide what is our best decision for 2023. So again, we have these what if graphs. We don't have every county what if graphs posted on our website, but I will be willing to help people if they have questions, so don't hesitate to ask me if you have future questions. But again, these are hypotheticals using the most current data that we have. And I'm going to highlight here, this is Stearns County. My office with the University of Minnesota is in St. Cloud. That's kind of why I chose Stearns County, a central Minnesota number here. And I want to highlight what this is going to look like here for the 2023 likelihood of payments. We can see currently, the WASDA outlook, the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate from the United States Department of Agriculture, their outlook price on corn is over $6 for the marketing year of 2023, which will conclude next year. So with a $6, over $6 in our outlook price, PLC payments are unlikely, right? We need the PLC price to be below $4, right? We have a $3.70 reference price, so we need corn price to come below $4 to issue a PLC payment. Currently, it is not projected to do so. So I just want to highlight PLC payment on corn is looking to be unlikely to occur for the 2023 growing season. So our next program is ARC County. So in Stearns County, the ARC County yield is 185 bushels per acre on average on corn. We can see that at the average yield of 185 bushels per acre, we need our price of corn to be around $3.20 for the marketing year average to issue a payment. I think the marketing year average price will probably not be below $3.50 with our current prices. So at average yield, payments are unlikely. If we do have a reduction in yield, we can see our calculation here says that 94 bushel county yield will produce an ARC County payment at $6.70 for the marketing year average price on corn. So we need a fairly significant reduction in yield, more than 30% reduction in county average yield to issue an ARC County payment. So again, payments are not looking super likely on corn. Different counties might have a little bit of a different comparison, but for the state as a whole, PLC looks unlikely to make a payment on corn, and every county would need a fairly significant reduction in yield to issue an ARC County payment. And now we'll switch over to soybeans. Again, we have Stearns County highlighted here. The ARC County yield is 50 bushels, and we can see that, at the average yield of 50 bushels, we would get a payment when soybean marketing year average price is around $8. Currently, the USDA projection there is close to $14 on soybeans. So at current average yields, no payments would be issued. We would need county average yields to drop to about 29, 30 bushels per acre to issue an ARC County payment. So again, we need a fairly significant reduction in our county average yields to issue an ARC County payment. PLC, kind of the similar story of 2021, where with current prices, PLC payments are looking unlikely. We need a fairly significant reduction in our marketing year average price to issue a PLC payment. Wheat. Again, our Stearns County average ARC County yield on wheat's 37 bushels. At that 37 bushel yield, our current USDA outlook price is about $9 on wheat, and we can see at 37 bushel yield, we would get a payment if it was about $5 wheat. So again, we need a pretty significant reduction in yield on wheat to issue an ARC County payment. And on PLC, we would need the price of wheat to drop below around $5.50 to issue a PLC payment. So a PLC payment, we would need a significant reduction in our price in the marketing average year to issue a payment. And an ARC County payment at current prices, we would need a significant reduction in yield to issue a county payment. So again, our payments are looking unlikely in the 2023 growing year, but these are not finalized. We do want to highlight that PLC. So we'll go into detail about how these programs work a little bit. And PLC, there are maximum payments. So the maximum payment is the effective reference price minus the loan rate. And we can see on corn, the most you can get is $1.50 a bushel, soybeans just over $2, wheat just over $2, which is a pretty big payment. But in order to do that, we need prices to dramatically decrease to issue the maximum payment rates on PLC. So with the farm with 160 bushel PLC yield, the maximum possible price loss coverage corn payment would be $204 per acre. We can see the math there of 160 bushel yield times that maximum price at $1.50 a bushel times 85%. These ARC County and PLC pay out on 85% of base acres, and that's why that 85 is in there, which then would equal $200, $204 an acre. Again, ARC County, the maximum payment is 10% of benchmark yield, or benchmark revenue, excuse me. So the typical maximum county benchmark revenues are around $40 to $75 for corn on the different counties in Minnesota. It's generally lower for some of the other commodities. So again, $40 to $75 is the maximum payment for most of these commodities through the ARC County program. And we can see when we highlighted the what if graphs for Stearns County a couple slides ago, that showed the maximum payment there with really low yields. And it was, $75 on corn, $50 on soybeans, approximately. And that's the highest that is possible. ARC individual is generally a lower program or lower expected payment because ARC individual only pays on 65% of base acres. In comparison, ARC County, which is 85% of base acres, PLC also pays out at 85% of the base acres that you have. Again, 10% of your ARC individual benchmark revenue is the max payment. So a similar math behind that in comparison to ARC County. So again, PLC has a fairly large maximum payment, but that's only if prices are really, really low. Currently, that is unlikely to occur. ARC individual has the lowest maximum payment in comparison of ARC County, ARC individual, and PLC. Potentially though, ARC individual payment automatically will go to your maximum level when a farm is 100% prevent plant. And I know that a few years ago in 2019 and 2020, we had some farms enroll in ARC individual with that prevent plant. And then ARC individual was a very attractive option, and it paid out fairly well with some of the large prevent plant acres that occurred with a really wet spring in some of those years. And again, we want to highlight the USDA does have a payment limit, right? They have a maximum payment on these programs of $125,000 per farm. So again, one thing that we just need to be cognizant of. So again, PLC, ARC County, ARC individual, those are the different program options that farmers have to enroll into. And we want to tie in a little bit here with some of the crop insurance options. So if you do use price loss coverage. You have an additional crop insurance option of SEO, supplemental coverage option. And we'll just kind of highlight what that is here. So supplemental coverage option, SEO, that covers county-based losses from 86% down to what your individual farm's coverage is. So maybe you have 65% individual crop insurance on your farm. Well, then this SEO would cover from 65% up into 86%. That additional 65 to 86%, that 21% coverage is county-based coverage and not individual farm like your crop insurance would typically be. So if you're currently not at the 85% revenue protection, you can add subsidized supplemental coverage option for relatively low price. You're going to be paying more total premium, but that additional SEO option is subsidized quite heavily. It's subsidized at 65%, I believe. So potentially is a good option for farmers to consider. So again, if you're currently at the 85% revenue protection, you could reduce your individual county. Maybe you could reduce that down to 70% and pick up SEO, and you would still have coverage up to 86%. But the top end of that coverage would be a little less valuable because it's county-wide instead of individual farm. And this graph hopefully highlights that, where that dark red, that maroon color, that's your individual coverage with, revenue protection, maybe you have the harvest price exclusion, yield protection there, but that SEO, right, that covers up to 86% or 86% down to where your individual coverage percentage is. So you can, again, cover that difference with SEO. It's going to be cheaper than individual coverage for your farm. So maybe it's a little bit of a cheaper option that you would like to consider. And again, in order to use SEO, that acreage needs to be enrolled into PLC. So if you use ARC County, SEO is not an option. So again, it's additional county level coverage. You need to be enrolled in PLC, and then the SEO premiums are subsidized at 65%. So a fairly high subsidy rate. Another option here is the enhanced coverage option. So again, ECO. So again, this is a fairly new tool. It was introduced in 2021. SEO was introduced with the 2014 Farm Bill. So that's been around for a little bit longer than ECO. But ECO, that's going to provide even more additional county level coverage. That's going to go from 86% up to 90% or 95%. So you have kind of two options there to enroll into. Again, to be eligible, you must purchase crop insurance at the individual level, and you do not have to be in PLC. You can use ARC Individual, ARC County, or PLC and still elect to use this ECO tool. It's going to cover from 86% county average revenue protection up to either 90 or 95%. You can see the subsidy rates there are 44% and 51%, depending on if it's revenue or yield. Okay, and again, it might be a cheaper option than getting your individual coverage up, to the maximum. You can't get 95% level otherwise. So again, a fairly new tool, but this graph hopefully highlights that you can get your individual coverage, that maroon bar in the right side. You can get your individual coverage up into X%. If it's 65%, 70, 75, 80, or 85%, you have the option to use supplemental coverage, SEO, if you use PLC to get up to 86%. So it'll go from 86% to wherever your crop insurance is. And we have then another option there to use the enhanced coverage option to get all the way up to 95% coverage if you so desire. Again, SEO and ECO are both county average tools. So it's not your individual farm yields, it is your county average farm yields. And here's a graph. This is an estimate here. This is kind of a hypothetical here. This is based on the Farm Doc crop insurance calculator. And we can see this is for Stearns County here for this growing season of 2023, based on what your coverage level is, all the way from 50% up to 85% with your revenue protection. Again, if you want to use revenue protection with SCO, instead of a $5.50 per acre payment with the revenue protection, it'll jump to $36 per acre, but then you would have 50% individual coverage and 36% additional county average coverage there for an additional around $30 per acre, right? So that is where that tool comes in. Whereas that $36 per acre of revenue protection with SCO is still about $30 cheaper than buying 85% individual coverage of revenue protection. So if you look at that $65, 85% coverage option, that's quite a bit more expensive than utilizing the revenue protection with SCO. Even if you want to get 80% individual revenue protection with supplemental coverage option, that is $46 per acre. It's still about $20 per acre cheaper than getting 85% individual revenue protection there in that first column. So that is the benefit of utilizing SCO. Again, quite a bit cheaper than purchasing 85% coverage on your crop insurance on an individual basis. And again, ECO, again, this is a hypothetical here on corn acres for Stearns County, and we can utilize both 90% and 95% SCO on top of our revenue protection, on top of SCO as well. We can see we have a lot of different scenarios on this tool here. And again, we can see at that 50% coverage option, it's the same price to get 50% individual coverage with SCO and ECO at 95%. It's the same price, similar in price, as getting 85% individual coverage for your revenue protection crop insurance program there. And you'd have an additional 11% of county average protection there for about the same money. So those, again, that is the trade-off of using SCO and ECO, and there might be some dollar savings in utilizing these optional crop insurance programs. I want to highlight these are Stearns County specific numbers. This is from the Farm Doc crop insurance estimator tool that we have in our resource list at the end of this. And I would highlight, if you're interested in utilizing SCO or ECO, talk to your crop insurance agent, right? They're going to have some of the details. They're going to have a little more specifics for what your individual payments would be. But again, ECO, SCO might be a good option to save some premium money and still have some pretty high level coverage for your farm's crop insurance needs. Breaking down in ARC County a little bit more specifically, ARC County is a revenue-based tool. So it's based on a national price. The price is set nationally, but the county yield. So ARC County uses an individual county yield that your farm is in with a national price. You can protect countywide yield variation, but not your individual farm's yields, right? ARC County, it's county-based yields. Your individual farm yields do not impact directly that year's payments. ARC Individual, again, it's a revenue-based tool. It's a little more complicated, the math behind it. It only pays on 65% of base acres. ARC County pays 85% of base acres, so we have a loss of coverage there, but this is more based on your individual farms. Right, so it's a whole farm program, all crops planted by each FSA farm number, must be an ARC individual. Payments based on the commodities you planted instead of your base acres, which is what ARC County and PLC are more based on. So again, ARC individual looks at your farm yield, not your county yield. And there are some cases where, again, this is a fairly good option. And again, these are some cases when it would be a good idea. If your production is highly variable year to yield, maybe 1 year, with weather, whatever the reason is, it varies a lot, then ARC individual might be a good option in comparison to county-based yields. I know that the ARC individual came as a result of some of our Western United States counties that were really large in size and had significant yield variation across the county. Some of the really large counties in our Western states have huge yield differences. Maybe they had, higher elevation to one side of the county in comparison, and they had a big difference in yields, and that's where ARC individual came to be. If your ARC individual farm yield is much higher than the ARC county yield, right? So if it's about 30% or more, or in comparison to your PLC yield, ARC individual might be a better option. Right? ARC individual, if you have a lot of variation, is a good tool. Fruits and vegetable production on some of these non-payment acres. If you do have some fruits and vegetables, not every possible crop is available for coverage with the Farm Bill in ARC County. So if you have some of those non-covered Farm Bill commodities, ARC individual might be a better tool. So again, those are the three programs: price loss coverage, agricultural risk coverage at the county level, agricultural risk coverage at the individual coverage level. Those are the three options that farmers have to choose between. And these are some of the resources that we have, right? FarmDoc both has a ARC PLC calculator. And when I showed that SCO and ECO crop insurance decision-making tool, FarmDoc, which is based out of Illinois, has those crop insurance calculators. But I want to highlight, talk to your crop insurance agent if you are interested in utilizing those other options, which again are cheaper, they're more affordable to get some of that county-based coverage. I also want to highlight the University of Minnesota Extension website has a lot of great resources, right? We have a business management page there. We have a Farm Bill section that highlights a lot of this information. A lot of the information we went through is available on the University of Minnesota Extension's website. So don't hesitate to look there as well. And that FarmDoc calculator tool, that's that first bullet point, this is what it looks like. So you can download it and highlight what state and what county you are in. So again, I have Minnesota and Stearns County for corn in this example. And again, the county average yield for our county is 185 bushels. The marketing year average, price currently is around 680 or so in this FarmDoc calculator. And we can see in the middle of this table in those pink cells, projected here into the 2023 growing season, it is a zero payment for both PLC and a zero payment with ARC County. So projected into 2023, this growing season, the payments will be received in October of 2024, but the decision that is due on March 15th of 2023 here, both ARC and PLC are projected to be very small payments. We're not really projected to get a payment for either program. But again, if you are interested in the supplemental coverage option for crop insurance, PLC is required. So that's the one kind of big pro with PLC. Then you have the option to use SCO. Again, We just highlighted this. We want to consider our higher prices here in 2023, right? The marketing year average price, it's around $6.70, $6.80 currently in corn. Wheat is around $9, soybeans around $14. Those are some pretty big numbers, right? And currently, with prices as they are, we're not going to get a PLC payment, and ARC payments are going to be minimal at best. We would need a pretty large reduction in yield to trigger a payment on these commodities that we have. But our 2023 marketing average window isn't closing until fall of 2024. So we have, again, a year and a half before these prices are finalized. So nothing's set in stone yet, but currently payments are unlikely in Minnesota on ARC County and PLC. So in wrapping up here, and then we'll get to questions that we have. With higher prices, both ARC County and PLC payments are looking unlikely. ARC County could trigger if low yield. Like again, we had some payments in 2021 because of lower yields. That may happen again. So, there might be some additional producers that are shifting to ARC County because PLC payments are just unlikely. So are ARC County, but they might switch to ARC County if there's a reduction in county average yields. Again, though, with that supplemental coverage option in crop insurance, you need to select price loss coverage. So if SCO for crop insurance is desired, price loss coverage is required for the farm programs, the farm bill programs that you have. So this number at the bottom, this was as of last week. From FSA here in Minnesota, there were 56,628 contracts already signed up, locked in for 2023. That's about 42% of the total. So around just under half of all farmers, their decision, they already filed the paperwork at their local county FSA office. But hopefully for the people on the call today, this helped make their, help make their decision here for the other, 55% of farmers who haven't signed those contracts already. Again, so what we talked about in the last hour, what happened in 2021, what payments were selected, what programs were selected, what payments were triggered in 2021, we highlighted that. And then we highlighted some of the decision strategy here for 2023, some of the educational tools, the downloadable Excel files that can help you decide what programs likely to have a payment or not. I do want to highlight again here, I am Nathan Helensky with the University of Minnesota Extension on our Agricultural Business Management team. You can see the materials here are available on our website. Feel free to reach out to me via email, right? huli0013@umn.edu. I am based out of St. Cloud. So again, if they have future questions, don't hesitate to ask me. And with that, we're going to leave time here for some questions. We have a couple in the chat box here, and I'll try to get them answered. We have a question here about available to offer the this PowerPoint. There's a few questions on that, and send me an email, please, if you would like a copy of this. So that'd be the best way to get that started. We have a question about SCO Plus, and I can't unfortunately answer that with much detail. If you're curious in that SCO Plus, I would recommend you reach out to your crop insurance agent. They will have a more detailed answer than I am able to share right now. And we have another question about if an election is not made, if you don't do anything, if you don't go to your local FSA office by March 15th, which is the deadline for this, you will automatically be renewed into the program that you were elected into last year. So if you do nothing and last year you did ARC County, you will automatically be enrolled in ARC County. If you do nothing and last year you were enrolled in PLC, you will automatically be re-enrolled into PLC. So yeah, I just want to highlight that. If you do nothing, you are enrolled into what you previously were enrolled into. So I believe that's all the questions that came through here. I will stick around for another 10 minutes or so, waiting for more questions to come in. Again, don't hesitate to send me an email. Again, I don't think there's any more questions coming in. If you guys have questions, again, feel free to use the chat box or the Q&A box. Type in your question. It'll pop up on my screen and I will get them answered. My email is on the screen here. So again, if you have future questions, don't hesitate to send me an email. I will answer them at the best way that I can. I want to thank everyone for joining our call today. Hopefully we learned something. And again, feel free to reach out to me with future questions. My email is on the screen. Hopefully that's easy for everyone to see. And again, follow up with me. No more questions came through. So I will, like I said, I will stick around. All right, we have a question here about, are the per county ARC yield levels available on the extension website? I would have to double check that. We had a question about our ARC yields, but I do know that I can find them for you. If you have a question about them, I can reach out and find those for you. So this is the list here. This is the website for both the farm bill, the farm doc farm bill calculator tool. There's a link right there. And then also we have our extension website there is posted as well. So again, just some more questions are coming through. If an election is not made, I believe the election remains in the same as the previous year. But if you are not enrolled in an elected program for 2023 without completing a contract. Okay, I believe there was a clarification there about if you don't go to your FSA office, you still have to kind of sign the contract to be fully enrolled in the program. And I believe that is accurate. You want to talk with your FSA office and get these finalized. So again, you still need to sign your contract there by March 15th. Again, everyone should check with their local FSA office by March 15th. If you want to stay in the same program, there's no problem with that. You still want to go to your local FSA office by March 15th and get everything finalized and make sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted to make sure everything is appropriately enrolled into the proper programs that you want to do. So again, I recommend everyone going to their FSA office and making sure everything is done properly. So again, I will stick around for another 10 minutes or so. If there's any future questions, don't hesitate to send me an email with any other questions that you have that you don't want to ask or don't know what to ask right now. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining our call today. That does conclude our 1-hour webinar here with Farm Bill options here for 2023. Again, March 15th is the deadline. Everyone needs to go. Everyone should go to their FSA office and finalize these decisions. If you want to change programs or not that you're enrolled into, you still should go to your FSA office and get everything done properly. Make sure all the contracts are signed and you are enrolled into the programs that you want to. And I want to highlight again, contact your local crop insurance agent when you are, if you are considering both that SCO and ECO, the supplemental coverage and enhanced coverage option. So there's a question here about, I believe when you post into the Q&A box, the Q&A checkbox or the question and answer box, I believe I am the only person who is seeing them on the screen. Everyone will not see the Q&A chat box, but I will try to answer them live. And again, if you have a question, feel free to either throw it in the chat box or throw it into the Q&A box.